Mr. Chairman, good morning, Secretary Rice. Last year, October 2006, in a State Department briefing, you made the following broad assessment, I'll characterize it, about Prime Minister Maliki, the Interior Ministry, and corruption in Iraq. You said, I think he's a very good and strong Prime Minister. As you know, they've really started to take action. We've said many times that the Interior Ministry and the prior government, before the permanent government was put in place, was not active enough in really rooting out potential corruption and potential violence within the ministry itself or the ministry forces, and so they are really starting to take some actions of that kind. We've heard today, and we heard in our hearing 3 weeks ago from Inspector General Bowen that he talked about the rising tide of corruption in Iraq. It's getting worse and is now a second insurgency, he called it, and Judge Roddy, we've heard, says corruption is getting worse because of the sectarianism in the country and the lack of the rule of law. What I'd ask you is if you're willing to give a broad assessment, no sourcing, a broad assessment as to whether over the last year since you made that statement, corruption in Iraq has gotten better or worse.
I really would be reluctant to make such a broad statement because I would submit to you, Congressman, that in some places it's gotten worse and in some places it's gotten better. And so if we want to do a net assessment, I think I ought to go do a net assessment for you. But it is very clear to me that some of the problems that existed, for instance, in budget execution have been ameliorated and are better. It is very clear to me that some of the problems that existed in the Ministry of Interior are being addressed. But there are still pervasive problems of corruption in any number of ministries, including in the Ministry of Interior. So some things have gotten better, some things have gotten worse. I can give you a net assessment. I can't give you a net assessment on the spot.
Right. So you're not willing to agree with the broad characterizations that Mr. Bowen made and that Judge
I'd rather do my own net assessment. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. As part of our investigation, we also talked to State Department officials, again, trying to find out whether the situation has improved or not. And when we interviewed Mr. Folk, who is one of the U.S. Embassy's top anti-corruption officials, we asked him about your statement a year ago, and he said that he could not answer in an open forum, as you said, because it would require me to go into details that would break into the guidelines that were given to me. So basically he said he was under orders not to comment whether your statement was accurate or not. And my question is, if you're making broad assessments that are flattering to the Iraqi government, as you did in October 2006, and now as your public policy you're not willing to make those statements, isn't it fairly obvious that you're afraid of concealing negative information, and any person with half a brain would understand that the situation is not good, or else you'd want to talk about it?
Well, let me, since I'm certain we all have a brain, let me say it this way. There is a very bad problem of corruption in Iraq. It is a problem in ministries. It is a problem in government. It is a problem with officials. I don't think that's very flattering. Now, the effort has to be to help the Iraqis address that corruption, and also to have an assessment ourselves through investigation and through taking information. Much of the information that you continue to put out by Seeger and so forth actually comes from the embassy looking into these issues themselves. So one of the problems with simply relying on the Inspector General reports, which by the way I do too, and as I said I meet with Stuart Bowen every time that I can, is that these are often issues that are being uncovered by the department and then reported to the Special Inspector General. So it would be wrong to leave the impression is being done that somehow the Inspector General is going in and finding things that the State Department is trying to hide. If you look at his lists, you will very often find that these are through interviews with our people who are in the process of trying to fight corruption.
And it's very frustrating, I think, to those of us who sit here, that when we ask for assessments of the situation from the leadership of the State Department, that we don't get candid answers. And I would submit to you that I and many others sitting on this panel are in our positions today because the American people was convinced that they weren't being leveled with about the conduct of this war, and that if we had been more candid, if the administration had been more candid, then maybe the approval rating for what we're doing over there would be of reasonable levels. And unfortunately, this total stonewalling and lack of candor is what's contributing to a lack of confidence in the American people.
Well, Congressman, if you don't mind, I will respond, because I don't know how to be more candid. There's a pervasive problem of corruption in Iraq. There's a problem in the ministries. There's a problem in the government. There are problems with officials. Our job is to try to investigate when we hear of and when people come to us. It is our job to put in place anti-corruption efforts to help the Iraqis do so themselves. But I don't know how to be more candid. I don't know how to be less flattering. There is indeed a problem of corruption in Iraq that we are trying to address through multiple fronts.
Gentleman's time has expired.